What's going on, guys? It's Sensei Adam. Welcome back to another Brawl video. And today I have a pretty interesting video for you guys. We're going to be going over the entire Q&A that Supercell just had on their Reddit, basically going over their vision for what the game is going to look like in the future and some more newer features that are probably going to come up in the upcoming update. And also they go over what they think their opinion or chances are that Portrait is going to come back in the future, what they're doing about auto aim and how to fix that. And also, did this last update work? Did the player retention rates, are they looking positive or are they going downwards? So we're going to be going over all those questions plus more, and also my personal opinion on how I feel on all of these questions and answers as well. So if you guys have any opinions that you guys like to share on your thoughts, just leave it down in the comment section below. I always take the time to read every single one of your comments, and I'm going to reply to a lot of them this time. So I love to see what you guys think of all of Supercell's responses. So let's get started. So how we're going to go over this is I'm going to put the most significant questions, the most important ones, towards the beginning of the video, while the less significant ones and miscellaneous are going to go towards the end. So the most significant one that I believe is this. So in the status report of the following landscape changes, you talked a lot about retention as a key reason you chose to make these changes. So it's been a few weeks since then. Could you talk more in detail about how the data is looking, what kind of data you look at, and that sort of thing, and are the results better or worse than you expected? Are the changes the right ones for the future of the game? And then Supercell responded, overall, we're looking at the retention of new players who downloaded Brawl Stars after the update. We compared this data to the previous retention levels of players who downloaded before the update. We saw no negative impact from the changes to landscape and a slight positive trend. Of course, we love to see a higher positive trend, but there's nothing in the data that suggests changing landscape was wrong decision. On a side note, I know there's a lot of feedback on Reddit about lower activity and fear that the game is dead. Of course, everybody's saying that on the Reddit. However, I want to emphasize that you're the elite top players. Most of you have been playing for almost a year. Our focus has been on the early game for quite a while lately, which we sacrifice providing content for the late game players. This focus is going to shift once we're happy with the early retention. Right now, while in soft launch, we need to build our foundations. So they basically just doubled down on what they said last time, which is from their stats, it's been looking positive, and player retention from people that downloaded after the update is looking pretty decent. And you can't really argue with their data since they actually have the percentage of people that basically uninstall after a certain amount of time. So if their data says that, yeah, it says that, it's fact. And another question that goes hand in hand with that last one is this: is there a chance that classic Brawl Stars will come back? So by classic, I'm pretty sure he means Portrait. If retention keeps going down, and if not, will the game finally be altered to be made into a landscape game? The game, the maps, the mechanics are all designed for Portrait right now. So basically he says will Portrait come back? And if not, will the maps be switched to fit landscape? Because right now they fit more to be in a Portrait game. And then the dev team responded, if I'm understanding this correctly, you're either asking whether classic Brawl Stars, I assume this is Portrait, will return. We live by the mantra of never say never, but I think in this case, we made an exception. Portrait is never coming back. At the end of the day, we tested both versions and Portrait did not stand up compared to landscape. Regarding the maps, we're pretty satisfied to their design currently, though we'd like to add more. Although you can't sneak around the sides, this space on the left and right leaves room for the joysticks without having them obstruct the view. We're still adjusting some mechanics and will bring some of the auto aim changes in the next update. So basically, yeah, for everybody that's saying bring back Portrait, since their data, I don't know what it's from, but it's their data, it's saying that it's not as good as it is in landscape. It's never gonna come back, like they just said. We can hope that maybe in the future they add tap to shoot, but landscape is here to stay. You either have to like it or you don't. That's basically what I got. And in my personal opinion though, landscape isn't that bad. If they just release landscape without having all of the different controls, people will get used to it a lot sooner than now. But the problem is when they added auto aim and the double joysticks, it kind of changed the whole game mechanic, and it made it kind of inferior to the other one. So that's why people just think landscape is bad in general, because of the stuff that came with it. And then moving on from that, just building off of that, Basically now they discuss auto aim and how it's going to be changed in the future. So somebody asked, I know many people have been mad about auto aim, and I know you're doing something to nerf it. Is there anything specific about what you have in mind right now that you can tell us? And then Supercell responded, right now we're working on adjusting auto aim so that it's more difficult to spam. We want auto aim to be a viable option across all skill levels. There should be a cognitive choice during a game whether players have to skillfully decide which is better option, whether aiming manually or aiming or tapping quickly. Personally, on this topic, I'm torn, because I know personally I really hate auto aim because it takes a lot of skill out of the game, but I also know in a game you kind of have to have some sort of a noob skill in order to make the newer players like actually get interested and into the game. So like let's say in Clash Royale, whenever you finish the tutorial, you always get an epic card that seems extremely overpowered, and that's the noob skill for that game. But the other issue with that is that noob skills usually cannot be useful at higher level places. So as you grow, like in Clash Royale, the noob skill gradually goes away and you get introduced to more cards. But here in this, even at higher levels, you always see people just spamming auto aim when people are right next to you. So I just don't think that you can make a noob skill be good on both the early game and also extremely viable on the late game. That's what you don't want to see people having. You don't want to see like people on esports tournaments just spamming the auto aim button. That would not be like very good for the future of the game. The one issue I see with auto aim here is that early game, probably retention will improve, of course, because people can just spam that button. But then going to the mid and late game, it's kind of gonna like get boring fast, and then people are gonna leave a lot more than they did before. So early game retention is gonna be higher, but as the game goes on, people aren't gonna be as interested. So I don't know if it's gonna help like the lifespan of the game. Like let's say after 2 years, after like probably half or more of the population is in the late game, are they still gonna be interested in it? And is it gonna make the game long-term viable? But aside from that, another hot topic that's been discussed a lot is of course the control options, because many people believe the current dual joystick is much more inferior to the previous tap to shoot option. And then somebody asked, in the previous status update, we were informed that the controls will continue to be tweaked and optimized in order to address the difficulties players have experienced with the current attack joystick. But with no mentions of the controls in the most recent status report, it is unclear whether or not the community should anticipate any changes to the control scheme in this time for the next update. My question is, besides auto aim, what changes, if any, can we expect to the controls in the coming update? And then Supercell responded, I'll combine the answer for these two questions. You won't see any major changes to the controls aside from auto aim tweaks in the next update. And this for me is kind of sad, because I was really hoping maybe they add like tap to shoot as an option in the settings while leaving like the current joystick as a default option for new players, because like the veteran players, they really prefer like accuracy over comfort. While I understand new players want like that easy joystick that it's much easier to keep players around, because like everybody knows how to use a joystick. Well, tap to shoot, it's more innovative, but it's kind of a little bit more confusing. So yeah, since it's gonna stay the same, it's kind of like a disappointment for me. But I hope in the future like they just add an option in the settings, and then so like both the veteran players and the long-term players can be happy, while the new players can still like stay around for longer. And then this next question right here just kind of addresses like what direction and who Supercell is kind of trying to get to. So basically the first part is them saying like, yeah, people are dissatisfied with this update. And then the second part is, the dev team has consistently reiterated that how important player retention is in developing the game. My question is, does the dev team also prioritize retention of current soft launch players as opposed to brand new players? And if so, what are the plans for this? And then they answered, absolutely, we're interested in the retention of all players. However, we focus on the retention numbers that will allow us to be confident in global launch decision. That means primarily looking at the first 30 days of retention. To our point, the older players 90+ days leaving the game, this doesn't factor as heavily in the development decisions right now. I think it's a really important question, so I like to go a bit more depth in here. And then basically they go into an analogy where they compare Brawl Stars to a beach and in the early game into a bridge. and they're trying to fix that bridge in order to get more people to go into the beach. And if like they don't fix the bridge in time, they're not going to be able to open it to the world, and not that many people, and people are not going to be able to go into the beach. And I completely agree with this. Let's say like their player retention numbers aren't as good as they like to, then that would mean they probably shut down the game and never release it to global. So they're trying to do changes in order to make player retention like hit their mark and they be able to release it to global. And that's basically their end goal, to meet that standard in order to release it to global. Because if people early on are just dropping it like flies and only a few people are getting dedicated to the game, then it's not going to make enough revenue to make the game profitable for them. And then building off that, somebody asked a pretty similar question, which was, we know that the dev team has been working hard on making the game enjoyable for new players, but many of us on Reddit have been playing for almost a year now. What are your plans for making the end game more enjoyable for us? And then their answer was, I'll be brutally honest with my answer. Right now, our only focus is preparing the game so that it's good enough for a global launch decision. We're not concerned about day 365 players right now, because our eyes are locked on the future day 1 players. Once the groundwork is laid, we'll shift our focus on the long term. With that being said, many of the things that we're looking at will be super enjoyable for everybody regardless of how long they play. Spectate mode, social features, new brawlers, new maps, and new modes. All of these should be great content for all players. So of course here, they're saying they're prioritizing like the day 1 players, of course, because at global launch, you're going to get a flood of new players. And first impressions matter. People are going to decide if they like the game or not right then and there. So like if people don't like it and they only change it later, then like it's going to be tough luck for them. That's why they need to just focus on like those for global release. And I actually want that. Like if they just add new stuff that they've been adding before, it's not going to like lay the foundation for a global release. But also here, maybe on the next update, we're going to have spectate mode, of course, social features, new brawlers, new maps, and new modes. That's pretty exciting, even for older players. But that basically covers all the hard questions on what Supercell is trying to do for the future. But now let's go on for some more light questions, like some more minor things that Supercell might be adding. And in this one, I actually personally asked myself, so it's kind of interesting that they put it on the questions, which was like, are they interested in changing the monetization system? Because right now it kind of feels boring. Like whenever you open a box, it feels way too repetitive. You just always get those PowerPoints and there isn't even like a rarity change between them. And they said probably not, but at least at the moment we've changed the system quite a few times and we're pretty happy with where it is right now. So yeah, it's going to stay the same probably on the next update, but my hope is that they change it in the future and make it so that at least the PowerPoints have like some different rarity, so you feel like if you get a lot of PowerPoints, you feel happy about that. Next question, and another hot topic that's been asked a lot, is will there be a method of unlocking brawlers with gold or some other resource similar to chips in the past? And then he asked like, it's not fair that people have been playing for a year and don't even have like a legendary, and you always just have that 0.11% chance to get a legendary. And then Supercell responded, we won't be adding something exactly like chips, but we're currently working on some changes to trophy progression, which will give guaranteed rewards to certain trophy levels. This should help ease the feeling of randomness while giving clear goal and milestones. And this I'm all in favor for. Like I always said, like the trophy system kind of feels underwhelming, and that's kind of another factor of player retention that draws players away. So I'm glad they're finally deciding to fix that. Moving on to some more mechanical things, one of the questions was like, will Barley and Dynamite ever be able to throw at their feet again? And then Supercell said like, that's a little tough to do without fundamentally changing how the controls work. And yeah, like if you don't have tap to shoot, it's kind of like tough to throw directly at their feet. But they said like it's just one of their weak points. And yeah, Dynamite is really strong right now, so he doesn't really need that as much. But like yeah, you kind of want that because it, like I don't know, it just feels like without having that, the throwers are just fundamentally weak in that regard. And another interesting thing we've been seeing on Reddit a lot is people asking thoughts on adding a second interchangeable star power for brawlers. So basically like a star power that you can change, and each brawler has like many star powers and you can choose one of them. And then the team answered, we talked about it many times as a team, at least not right now, it's not on our roadmap. This is partly a philosophical question whether customization will be good for the game or will it make it suffer. However, it will be really neat, a really neat late game addition to add some more variety. And I kind of agree, like it would be really interesting if you could like customize your brawler and make it like some interesting decision, like on a map, would you want this star power or would you want it on another? And I think that will make it like be a lot more strategy based on the late game. And the last thing we're going to cover, of course, is showdown teaming. Because it's been a big issue for probably like the past 3 months, where people just go on Discord, go on a voice chat, and everybody just teams up on everybody else, and they don't kill each other. And Supercell's response to this is that it's especially tough at higher trophy ranges just because of the small player pool. But if and when Brawl Stars goes global, and the much bigger player pool will certainly help prevent this, because it will be a lot harder for people to just team up on everybody, because like it will be harder for people to just get into the same game. And if not, they're going to take other measures, such as in the next update, they're going to hide all players at 300 plus trophy game. So that's a pretty big step, and it's going to make it much harder for like the showdown teamers to operate. I still think it's going to go on, because they can just say like, oh, I'm going to play Terra, and you're going to play Crow. Let's all go to the middle and meet up, and nobody kill each other. And it's very easy to do that in voice chat, so I don't think in the short term it's going to fix that. But in the long term, I think it's going to be a lot harder to do it, especially when the game goes global and the player pool becomes a lot bigger. Alright guys, so that's all the questions I'm going to go over. There are some more minor questions that like you guys can go check out for yourselves. I'll leave the link for the Reddit post on the Q&A down in the description below and also in the comments. But like I said before, I love to hear what you guys think on all of these Q&As, and I'm also going to reply to like as many comments as you guys post, giving my personal opinion on your thoughts. So I hope everybody enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. If you did enjoy it, make sure to like and subscribe for more daily Brawl Stars content. And as always guys, I'll see y'all next time. Peace.